Hey everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Josh, that is Caleb, and you know what time it is. It is game week. Today we are doing the Nebraska Northwestern predictions, breakdown, keys to the game, everything you need to know going into this game. And let me tell you, there's a lot you need to know. We have a lot to talk about today. Caleb, how you doing?
You know, I'm feeling great, Josh. I'm feeling kind of Irish this week.
Yeah,
you know?
man. Jeez.
I'm excited to drink some beverages and watch the Husker football game. It's going to be an exciting one, obviously, over in Dublin in Aer Lingus Stadium.
Insane.
It's going to be a very exciting time. First time there's been an overseas game since 2017. So for all of college football. So it's pretty exciting. Hasn't happened in a while, and glad that we get to, spoiler alert, beat the crap out of Northwestern in Ireland, just the way it should be.
We will
dominating
see
across the globe this year. It's exciting to see.
It's going to be interesting. Obviously, we're going to be breaking down this game, going offensive, defensively, everything you need to know. And I think we can kind of start off in the big picture. Obviously, overall, right now it's a 13-point spread for the game. Nebraska is favored by 13 with an over-under of 50.5. It actually opened at 10.5. It's been betted up to 13 now. And so slowly but surely, Nebraska, the money's been handed that way. But now we're at a pretty nice even split of money, 50-50 wise so far. Obviously, last year did not go to plan for Northwestern. It was a tough one, to say the least. They got absolutely smoked in the Big Ten, 1-8 in the Big Ten, 3-9 overall. Probably best win last year against Rutgers, a 21-7 win. And of course, they got body slammed by Nebraska last year, 56-7 in Memorial Stadium in Lincoln. So
joyous. They're
coming in with a 4.5 point overall projected win total. So, I mean, it's pretty low from the Vegas end. PFF has them power ranked actually a little bit more respectively at 83rd overall. Let's start on just the offensive side of the ball for Northwestern. Talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses of this team. Where are you at with this Northwestern roster?
Yeah, it's tough. There's a lot of moving pieces, just kind of like Nebraska. Their best player is Peter Skorinsky, started as a true freshman, now a true junior, top 15 ranked Power 5 tackle for both seasons. His grandfather is an NFL Hall of Famer, Bob Skorinsky, for the Packers. So he's a high draft pick. He looks very, very good. If Northwestern football, that's the one thing they'll be able to hang their hat on this season is they got probably a first round draft pick in him. So he's definitely their most exciting player. Well, as the offensive line, it's not always the most exciting to watch.
That's definitely where their offense wants to thrive with Peter Skorinsky and Ethan Whitaker. Like, those are the guys they want to be the front runners for this offense. And then obviously, like always, they want to run the ball downhill. They want to use that zone running with a nice duo this year of Cam Porter and Evan Hull to move the ball on the offensive side.
We don't know which running back will start from camp. Obviously, it's the first game. It's a Big Ten conference game, as Pat Fitzgerald has said. So, trying to keep things as close to the belt as he can. But I'm guessing we'll see a little bit of both of them. Probably like Northwestern is going to see a little bit of both of our running backs as well. But Cam Porter had a good season as a 2020 as a freshman, 24 carries, 142 yards versus Illinois. A lot of people think he's a starter. I still think it'll probably end up being Evan Hull if I had to choose it, but I could definitely see it both ways.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the Northwestern crowd seems to be incredibly excited about Cam Porter because of the upside and the what if. He got hurt before last season, and so that was the issue, is why we only have the film of him basically in 3 games in 2020 as the sample size for his career so far. But a lot of Northwestern folks seem to be pretty hyped about him as the potential starter for this team, and with the upside, the athleticism, and the big play build that he showed off, like in that Northwestern or in the Illinois game and in the game against Ohio State back in 2020. That's probably the biggest question mark for them, or the most exciting aspect of their offense heading into this game is the question mark of what Cam Porter could be. But we definitely know what Evan Hull is, like you said. I mean, he's just a solid, efficient, reliable runner, game in and game out, like they did last year and in the past.
Yeah, Northwestern's offense really isn't that flashy. That again, no. They scored like 14 points a game last year. It was not good whatsoever. One of the worst Big Ten offenses I've seen since Nebraska has been in the conference.
Yeah.
But I guess one flashy player that they do have is Malik Washington, a wide receiver. He will likely be their lead option. He had 43 receptions. After week 3, he did not drop a pass last season. And he had some really nice contested catches too, where he caught 9 of 12. in contested airspace. So he'll be exciting. He's only 5'9", but again, with those contested catches, again,
he's built and make plays. I mean, that's what's interesting. I think and it's like those are probably the areas where you're like, okay, this offense is a little bit interesting. That's where you can get excited about this Northwestern offense, but there are some major drawbacks, and the biggest of them all is the quarterback position, where they haven't been able to figure out who this starting quarterback is for years now. I mean, they've had different starters, 4 seasons now, with multiple quarterbacks starting in almost all of those seasons.
Yeah, since Peyton Thorne, it's been kind of we don't know who it is.
Yeah, literally. And so right now it's more than likely going to be Ryan Helinski starting at least at the beginning of this game. Who knows from here on out? There's definitely been a quarterback battle, and Pat Fitzgerald has not been willing to give basically any information on who the starter could be, but most assume it's going to be Ryan Helinski, who started the majority of last season for Northwestern. The upside for Helinski is that this will be his first year with the same offensive coordinator. They've had 3 straight different offensive coordinators, and it's just been chaos over there.
Similar story over here, though.
Yeah, exactly. And so maybe some of that will help a little bit, but he was horrible last year. I mean, there was no upside for this team whatsoever, and it's hard to see this team being more than just a one-dimensional run offense like they have been the past 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, Pat Fitzgerald has to pick somebody at some point. I mean, no quarterback last year threw for over 1,000 yards, which is just crazy. And they just had 3 different QBs. So they definitely need to find some sort of consistency if they want to look to win more than, 3 games or 4 games. It is weird that they really hadn't had a bad stretch like this since 2013-14, where they went 5-7 twice. Right. So I don't know.
Thanks to their defense. I mean, the offense has never been the highlight.
No, exactly. I don't think Pat Fitzgerald can stay down for this long. But again, on the offensive side, if you're just looking at that, they just don't look good.
Yeah. So here's some interesting stats last year on Ryan Helinski. Out of 67 Power 5 quarterbacks, he was 67th in PFF's grade. He was 67th in big time throw rate percentage. He was 64th in most turnover worthy play rate. He was 63rd in uncatchable pass rate, and 56th in the average depth of target. So he wasn't even throwing downfield, and he had those bad of numbers. So I mean,
would you have him throw the ball downfield?
No, with those numbers? Right, exactly. That's the thing. So I mean, you got to be excited for Nebraska POV to see Ryan Helinski back there and the struggles that they've had. And I mean, from Northwestern's point of view, they need Helinski to have a massive step forward this year, retaining an offensive coordinator in that regard. So that's kind of the pros and cons. I mean, as an overall perspective, what are your thoughts on this offense? Any expectation of success? Is it just the run game? Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's last year. The only difference is I'd say, last year our secondary was so good. I mean, Northwestern just had no chance whatsoever to throw the ball. I would have been scared, straight to. I mean, we had one of the best secondaries in the Big Ten, just in the coverage perspective with all the places. So they just really could run, and there was just nowhere they could go. I think this year it's more interesting. We do have more moving parts, more new pieces. Yeah. Where, maybe their passing game has improved somewhat, where they can get something off against Nebraska. But man, yeah, it's just not that exciting.
Right. The only other weakness I wanted to mention real quick was that their interior offensive line definitely has question marks as well. So we know for a fact their tackles are going to be good, but inside there's still a lot of questions. And overall last year, even though they had great tackle performances, they weren't a good offensive line because of the interior. So they're really relying on drastic improvement from those same players. So, I mean, there is still some upside that those guys could improve, but the question is how much. So that's still definitely going to be a potential weakness heading into the season. But yeah, you're right. And defensively is what you want to highlight.
Yeah. And we know as Nebraska fans too, you can have a couple really good, really solid offensive linemen, but if it is not that whole unit, it just doesn't matter. It is definitely a weakest link, especially on the offensive line. It shows. So you need a cohesive unit.
Yep, no doubt about it. So defensively, let's head over there. Obviously, it's been a mixed bag for Northwestern. They've had quite a bit of NFL talent there over the last few years. I mean, especially shout out to their, Big Ten championship berth teams that had significant talent on the defensive side of the ball. It wasn't as impressive last year as in years past, and that showed in the record. And especially on when it came to the running game, that's where they had their big time problems. I mean, they gave up 213 rushing yards per game last year, which was 50 yards worse than the next worst in the Big Ten. So they were getting torched on the ground.
A lot of that was thanks to the 400 and plus yards we put up that one game.
Very true. Very true. But it's going to be really interesting to see. I mean, they had some positive signs last year, and specifically their cornerback play was probably where we're going to start. So let's start off with the strengths of this defense. And you got to highlight the secondary, specifically their cornerbacks and then their safety, Coco Azima. But Cam Mitchell, AJ Hampton, and Coco Azima are the guys you got to look at there in the secondary.
Yeah, very solid players. Cam Mitchell had 37 solo tackles last year, 5 passes deflected, and the expectations that he'll be pretty good and make a big step. And he was the 7th best graded cornerback in the Big Ten last year, so that's very exciting for them. But again, they lost a lot too on this secondary as well.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Joseph, he transferred to Notre Dame, and he was one of their best players last year. So you have to see those guys step up. So there's gonna be a lot more pressure here on Cam Mitchell and AJ Hampton to be the playmakers for him. And when it comes to AJ Hampton, there was pros and cons on both sides of his coin. So I mean, last year he was really effective at forcing incompletions. 19.1% forced incompletion rate was his 7th among all Power 5 outside corners. But the downside is that he allowed some huge plays and got torched. And that was highlighted in the Purdue game last year, where Milton Wright took him to the shed. I mean, Milton Wright had 213 yards in that game, and AJ Hampton alone was responsible for 235 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. And so this is the pros and cons of a guy like that. And when you lose Brandon Joseph, now Hampton is highlighted on that defense, and they're relying on him to take a step forward and be more consistent. And so we'll have to see.
I'd understand if it was David Bell or Jackson Smith and Jigba or Chris Olave, but I mean, I think Milton Wright is good, don't get me wrong, but not like the game breakers that all just fit right in NFL talent that those guys were. Their pass rush is really an interesting spot. A lot like Nebraska's, like they really tried to go transfer portal heavy. So this is really where I'm most interested to see how will Northwestern fare. Like, is there any X factors here for them? Because they are replacing a lot of their defensive line. Actually, pretty much all of their defensive line with the transfer portal. They got Tayshawn Holmes from UMass. He's a nose tackle. He had 12 tackles last year, 8 solo. But he had a solid year at UMass.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably the player that's the most interesting out of all these transfers, to say the least.
I think him. I'm also interested in Henrik Barnt, the Indiana State guy as well, a defensive tackle. He obviously Indiana State, so not playing as nearly as big of competition. A fun little fact, though, Northwestern played Brandt last year, and now he's on Northwestern's team. Is that tampering? Did Pat Fitzgerald slip him his number after the game? Questions to be had. He had 17 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks last season. And obviously he saw some good competition. Pat Fitzgerald obviously must have liked something he saw in the film when prepping for Indiana State. And then the least exciting, but the biggest named school was Ryan Johnson from Stanford, the defensive end. He started 4 games, had 16 tackles, and half a tackle for loss, but PFF did not rank him very high.
Well, no, he was literally Stanford's lowest rated defensive player last year. So, that's a reason why he was dipping out of the program. So it'll be interesting. But like you said, all 4 of those guys are currently expected to start for Northwestern, or at least be significant contributors on the defensive side. So they're relying on a lot of guys. And again, 3 of those guys are defensive linemen. In a 4-3 they like to run, there's a lot of moving pieces there with, a mixed bag. And 2 of those guys are, small school guys. So there's a lot of question marks with how well they'll perform in the Power 5. And then their first game's a game against Nebraska. So there's a lot of moving parts there for sure, which I think probably to honestly be more of a weakness than anything for this team, because there's just so many question marks. But I actually really want to only other player I wanted to mention again was Coco Azima in the secondary, just because he was a really interesting player last year. He was very good around the line of scrimmage. I think it'll be interesting to watch how he plays this year against Nebraska, how they utilize him. And the question mark will be like how willing they are to bring him up to the line of scrimmage, depending on how much they respect Casey Thompson in the pass game, which we'll talk about more too. So like you mentioned, pass rush. One of the strengths for this team is, a fantastic player last year who was a big body, a legit playmaker for him. And it's Adetomiwa Adebayor, who absolutely was a legit great Big Ten player for him. I'm going into his 4th season and like an extremely effective pass rusher last year, 21 hurries, 5 sacks, and he genuinely looked great on film season long.
Yeah, that linebacking core too. It's just, how are they going to replace Chris Bergen's production? A guy like maybe Bryce Gallagher, he didn't grade that great, but he had a lot of tackles last year.
Yeah, he should be that next guy up. And
again, on those Northwestern articles, that's what they were saying. And some of the chat boards, but it's unknown. But again, you have to think that under Pat Fitzgerald, some linebacker is going to break out. Like there needs somebody to fill that middle linebacker
that was probably
role.
the problem last year, is that none of them were really that efficient last year.
No.
And that's why they were getting absolutely torched on the ground. They couldn't make up ground on the defensive side. So I think that'd be the question mark probably heading into their weaknesses is like, what will their linebacking core look like? I think Bryce Gallagher could be reliable, and he's probably teeters on the strength side of things. But the rest of the linebacking core is probably a huge weakness and a question mark.
Yeah, which is just uncharacteristic and probably just, again, it takes away from what Pat Fitzgerald's defensive philosophy wants to do. And again, yeah, the reason why they allowed so many yards last year, why they were giving up over 5 yards per carry, is it just wasn't what they were used to or used to having in these years. And again, if it continues to be more of the same, I mean, again, I just see Northwestern having a very rough season like we predicted in our predictions videos. Go check that out if you want to, by the way.
Yes. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting for sure. I agree with you. The defense overall, I mean, there's pros, there's cons. It could be decent and maybe slightly improved from last year, but I still think that this team could be beat on the ground again this year. And they're relying so heavily on those transfers that have question marks. It's just hard for me to see the drastic improvement that they need to make desperately to be a really, really good Big Ten team again, like they were in the past. So that's what's going to be interesting. So let's move on to some of the keys of the game here. Let's start just kind of on like the, and just maybe offensive side for Nebraska, and talk about some of the things you're hoping to see in this game, but specifically the keys and matchups you're looking for heading into this game in Dublin.
I mean, it's what we've been talking about this offseason, the most moving parts, just the new coaching changes, new quarterback, new wide receivers, just everything feels new and exciting. And I'm just super excited about it. I guess the one thing that's not as new is the offensive line. And I like to see how that we hold up.
Yeah,
how
we wish it was newer.
Year. Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. We wish there was like, oh, yes. Yeah, we do. I wish it was newer.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I want to see how it holds up. If we've gotten better, if we can give Casey Thompson more time to throw. Again, Northwestern is better than the Georgia Southern or North Dakotas we're probably going to see. I would assume they're going to have a little bit better of a pass rush. They're going to play hard. They're going to play physical. This is a conference game. And I can't wait to see how our offensive line responds. Hopefully not puking 15 to 20 times a game. Hopefully there's none of that.
A drive. We need every drive. Come on.
Yeah, hopefully they're working that hard that they're just throwing up. Just every play. It's just
I mean, obviously that's what Frost wants to see. I mean, come on, man. Nah, but I agree with you. Like, if Northwestern is getting to the quarterback, that's how you stop Casey Thompson. That's how you beat Nebraska. I mean, that is the first key to the game here. We saw like what we talked about in one of in Nebraska's prediction video, and some of the worst and best case scenarios is that Casey Thompson, at least at Texas, was not good under pressure. He was not very mobile. He was not very good at escaping pressure when under pressure, and worse basically than Adrian Martinez in every category while under pressure. And so what we're hoping to see is that we give Casey time to throw, or we see Casey, which is potentially another key to the game, is to be elusive, to show his mobility in the pocket and make confident throws. I think that's going to be really interesting to see. We'll talk more about that when we get to the point, the things that we're really hoping to see as well. But yeah, I agree. That pass rush, offensive line, Nebraska's pass blocking, that is a key to the game for sure.
Yeah, and again, we've talked about it a lot too, is just that yards per carry, being able to run again on Northwestern. Again, we think their defense is one-dimensional, and if we can get push from our offensive line, it was our best offensive line performance last year, and if we can get
to the open space, the second level,
good at getting a push, having our offensive line compete, especially on that just on the running plays, and then getting to see our new running back, see what they can do. Obviously, Yant had a big game last year against Northwestern. If we can see more of the same with that, that'd be very, very exciting. And it would be an automatic win if we could get over 4 yards per carry. I think if I saw that, if you only told me that stat and it was over 4 yards, I would 100% believe that Nebraska comes away with the win.
Right. I mean, like, and when it comes like to the key to the game, to how you get to that point, when you lose Cam Jurgens, you lose Norda Newley, our two highest rated offensive linemen last year in run blocking. And last year we were able to get to the second level and get outside, and we saw Yant take them to the house. Like, that's what we're hoping to see this game as well. So another offensive key for Nebraska, I mean, as it is in every game, but turnovers in a first game of the year, I think this is gonna be something you're gonna talk about later, is turnovers in the first game of the year where it can be sloppy, where you're in a new offense, there could be mistakes. Like, Casey Thompson's got to take care of the ball, and we can't be fumbling. I mean, that's just 101.
Again, we've seen the margins these last few years, and just those unforced errors have destroyed our team for the last few years. So just something that we do not want to see. I think we could handle, more turnovers than Northwestern can. If we cause turnovers for Northwestern, again, their offense, I just don't see being potent enough. Like, the only way they're scoring more than 14 points is with us handing the ball to them in a nice, solid position. If we cause some turnovers, if we get a couple more turnovers than them, I mean, it's a blowout.
My final key for the offense here is, let's test AJ Hampton. Again, if he was giving up those huge plays, let's put him to the test. And not only that, but like we said, they want to bring up Coco Azima into the box and get up close and play towards the line of scrimmage. But if you're early on testing AJ Hampton, getting it downfield, then Northwestern's got to respect that. And I think that's going to become a key to the game is, who's winning those matchups? Is Omar Manning winning that matchup on AJ Hampton? Is Alante Brown winning that matchup? If they are, this could get dangerous real quick for Northwestern if they're winning that matchup all day long.
Yeah, if they're getting bold, just single high safety, and then Trey Palmer is also a burner.
Yeah,
just have fun.
Yeah, exactly. And then that can start opening up the run game in the second half, and then that's where we get really excited. So, all right, let's go to some of the defensive keys here. I think the first one's pretty straightforward and obvious, but it's Nebraska's pass rush versus the fantastic offensive tackles for Northwestern. I mean, this is the true test. Can Northwestern's pass protection live up to the hype? Can Nebraska's pass rush live up to the hype? Both those conversations are incredibly interesting.
If we walk away with a couple sacks on those guys who just, really hurry the quarterback even, and there isn't a sack, but we're getting constant pressure with our defensive line, that gives us just so much excitement for the rest of the season, knowing that, again, on a really solid NFL caliber offensive line, that the hype is real, that the hype that we've been talking about this offseason, that with O'Shawn Mathis and Garrett Nelson, that it is actually, it's coming to fruition. We get to know pretty early. We get to know game one if this hype, if all that talk is really some walk on the football field. And that's really exciting to see. And I think it definitely can be.
Yeah. I mean, again, and like when it comes like the X factors, like if you're getting to the quarterback against Northwestern, they're already one-dimensional and they rely on time to throw to be even somewhat efficient in the passing game. So if you're getting to them, they're going to have a lot of problems. Ryan Helinski's going to have a lot of problems if he's under pressure.
He's already seeing ghosts and he's not even getting pressured. If he's pressured and seeing ghosts, I mean, it's over.
It's turnover town. Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just straight up probably the biggest X factor of the whole game when it comes to forcing turnovers. And then like, if you're forcing Ryan Helinski to be in some third and longs, then watch out, because then you can unleash the beast to get after Ryan Helinski, and then suddenly it's going to be a real problem. So I'm really looking for that. The other thing I want to see here is, Nebraska's new 4-3 that we're going to be running mostly as our base, at least supposedly right now, versus Northwestern's zone and downhill running schemes, which we already, little mentioned a little bit, but like, obviously, we want to see our team captains put to the test here. I mean, Nick Henrich, he really struggled at the point of attack in run defense last year. Without a doubt, the weakest point of his game. Right at the first game of the year, he's going to be tested. And I think that's going to be a key to the game here is how does he work in the middle of the field now in a 4-3 where he's got to have a lot more on his plate there in the middle of the field.
And I couldn't agree more. Yeah, how's our secondary going to do with Farmer, Buford, and Tommy Hill?
Yeah.
A lot of new moving pieces here. I don't think they're going to get tested that much. So if they can shut down Northwestern, obviously if they're getting burnt by Northwestern, it is huge red flags. But if they do their job, if they do their jobs, and Ryan Helinski looks like Ryan Helinski, then we can feel good. If he starts looking like, Aiden O'Connell did last year, then we're really worried.
Yeah, exactly. The last key is obviously special teams, which is also part of the next topic, is what we want to see from Nebraska. I mean, come on. It's been the X factor for us now for multiple years. And it was the X factor for why we lost 2 or 3 or 4 games last year alone. So we just want to see some consistent special teams from Nebraska on our side of the ball specifically.
Some field goals, some good punts. And again, something in the offseason that we worked toward that definitely was a priority for our coaching staff. So hopefully that just pays off and is just a great thing for us.
And can Trey Palmer be an X factor and a key to the game in the kick return game? I mean, I think that's also a possibility as well. And so I'm excited to see what the opportunity is there. Exactly. So, all right, let's head into our kind of like final conversation here before we get to our predictions and things that we want to see or hope to see. We've already mentioned a few of these things, so we'll kind of keep it a little bit shorter. But things we hope to see or want to see offensively for Nebraska. What are you hoping to see that would be a good sign for Nebraska heading into the rest of the season?
Yeah, I'd love to see a breakout wide receiver. I don't care who it is, but if somebody can have that,
that next step.
Yeah, 120, 150 yard game. Oh man, I'd be so
if they're the one
pumped.
burning AJ Hampton.
Oh my goodness. Talking 200 yards. I mean, I'd be over the moon if it was something like that. So yeah, if Casey Thompson, whoever it is, if they could start building that connection, that Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp connection for this season, it would be a ton of fun. That's my hope.
Even last year we saw it. I mean, Adrian Martinez was dicing him up downfield last year. Samari Torre had some huge, he had 2 receptions, 108 yards and a touchdown last year, so I mean, the big plays were there. And I think there's a high chance that could potentially be the case again this year, considering the similarities in their secondary.
Yeah.
So that will be interesting for sure. I'm with you. I want to see it. And then as well with Casey Thompson, obviously, we all want to see Casey Thompson be efficient, accurate, and taking care of the ball. Things that Adrian Martinez was questionable with in his career over time. And so that'll always be something that we're all, I think, looking forward to see. And then I think the running backs is what we all also want to see happen this year.
If none of them break out, they all have 3 of them have a really great game, or 4 of them, or whatever the rotation is.
Which it sounds like that's going to be the case. It's going to be probably a timeshare.
Yeah, and that's fine, and also makes sense if you can't really figure it out through camp. And I do understand that there's a difference between games and practice, and sometimes some players get bigger and some players get smaller just as they get on the field. So, and with the new guys, it'll be exciting, and again, that pressure of can you make the right decisions and remember the play. When it's coming in through the helmet in a loud stadium, and just everything that you can't really simulate. You can try to simulate, but it's just not the same in a game time.
Yep. I'm with you too. So on the defensive side, I think we already mentioned this, but again, we want to see a dominant pass rush. We've been talking about it all year. We get a great test up front. And if we're dominant in a game like this, then I'm really, really excited and potentially buy into the idea that we could be a elite pass rush team season long if we're putting up, 3, 4, 5 sacks in this game, something like that. That's where I would get hyped off the rip.
Then I can really start seeing those higher amount of wins. Yep. If our defensive line can be consistent, and they're just not getting time to our young secondary. Again, sky's the limit for our defense and the team for the season.
Yep. Alrighty, prediction time. Let's talk about what you actually think is going to happen in this game. I want to hear what your thoughts are first off the rip. Where are you at with this Nebraska Northwestern game?
Well, we're going to win in Dublin, 1-0, baby. 100%. Go Big Red. Ireland's going to have a great time, Nebraska fans, because let's be honest, we're the only ones traveling to Ireland. There'll be, maybe 2 Northwest.
Northwestern can barely make the trip to their own stadium.
They cannot make the trip to their own stadium. Let's be honest. If they sold those tickets for 25 cents in Chicago, they would still not sell. If it was a nickel, like it was in 1902, when they were still not good because they've never been good at football, no one would either go anyway. So, but
all the Northwestern fans screaming right now, when's the last time you were in the Big Ten championship?
Not a long time or never. So it's just fine,
But okay, well, what do you think is going to happen in this game?
I mean, I think it's going to be sloppy. It's a first game, lots of new moving parts. It's in Ireland. I do think that we'll be prepared, and I do like what Scott Frost said about, being loose, letting it rip.
Yeah, so that was one thing for sure. Was Frost was all about it. I mean, he was talking the big talk. Like, he wants to let it rip. He wants to go out there and not play tight, play loose, and give it a go. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, easier said than done, especially for Scott Frost, because it feels like in moments. Yeah, exactly. Now it's Mark Whipple, cool, calm, and collected Mark Whipple. You just see him out there with the shades.
Oh, yeah.
Just dominating. I think it'll be a sloppy game. I think we'll win 27-21. I'm going with
You're taking the
under on the points. And I guess Northwestern I'll take on the minus.
Interesting.
15. Yeah, so
how sloppy are we talking here? Like, only winning by 6 against Northwestern would be a pretty I would say not well received.
I think their defense is going to be improved from last year. I don't think their defense can be as bad as they were. I think their offense also has improved. I mean, they were really low last year on everything. I think we'll see slight improvements. I don't think Pat Fitzgerald stays down. I still think that, maybe they really only still win 4 or 5 games. But that, again, it being a first game, it being a clean slate. And then for us too, I think they'll play us close. And I think we'll have one bad turnover. As we do, I think our special teams will be improved, though. And I think that there'll be some key field goals that we can hit. I don't know if it'll be a game winner per se, but, just some clutch, field goals and good drives in the fourth quarter to just kind of put it away. I think we lead the whole time, but maybe, a sloppy turnover there in like the third quarter to, because it's Nebraska. I mean, we can't just enjoy it. It's got to be nerve wracking for at least a while.
Fair. I mean, I obviously, like you said in the past, Nebraska's first games of the season historically under Frost have not been pretty. They have been ugly. Obviously, the counter argument would be this is about as new of a team as you can have without having a new head coach when it comes to new starters and new players all over the field with transfers and new coaching staffs.
Offense, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So that is definitely the argument. I'm pretty confident. I definitely think Northwestern is not going to be a good team. They're one-dimensional as hell on offense. Defensively, though they have, respectable talent, it's not consistent, and their linebacking core could be, again, very, very bad. And like I said, I think we have enough weapons that we can expose an AJ Hampton, have some huge plays downfield, similar to what happened last year with even Adrian making big plays downfield, and Torre's breakout was against Northwestern. I think that's probably similar. That could happen with, Trey Palmer or Alante Brown this year. I think it's very possible. And similarly, though maybe they have some sort of success running the ball, on their end of the stick, I think overall our pass rush should have enough effect where I think we're going to basically make them a one-dimensional team. And Helinski is horrible. I just don't see a world where he puts up enough points for them to even have a chance, even if we turn the ball over. So I think we're going to win on the over. I'm going to take us 30-13 with a solid first game under this new Nebraska Scott Frost team. I'm excited to see a game like that. Would make me overall pretty optimistic for the future, and especially if we're lacking the turnovers and things like that, and we look overall pretty good and keep the score low, and we don't get burned. Like I said, I will be so scared if this secondary starts struggling in this game. But overall, I'm pretty confident we're going to be in a pretty good spot. I'll take Nebraska 30-13. In a really fun game, and I'll be excited to break a game down like that next weekend. So it's gonna be a blast.
Yes, yeah. So we both have us under the 50.5 points. Mm-hmm. So either way, it'll be a little bit more lower scoring.
Bet the under on the total. Yes, sir. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So obviously, drop all your comments down below. We want to see your predictions, your X factors, your expectations, your hopes for this game, for this first Nebraska game. Subscribe if you haven't already. A lot of you guys who watch these videos aren't subscribed, and it's noticeable in the analytics. So drop that subscription. It's not going to hurt. Just press the subscription.
It's just a button. It's just a button.
It'll help. So we appreciate you guys for watching. And again, drop your comments down below. We love seeing the opinions and everything else. But without further ado, guys, I'm Josh. That was Caleb. This has been Backseat Sports. And guys, we will see you next time.
Go Big Red.
Go Big Red, baby.